I'm Kaushik Raha. I'm an AWS Marketplace customer advisor, and I have been with the team for over 3 years. Fun fact, this is my second reInvent and the first time as a speaker. I'm excited that I get to work with AWS customers and partners every day in their adoption journey for AWS Marketplace. Now, I would like to request my fellow speakers, Mazen and Arun, to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Mazen El-Hydri. I'm the Global Procurement Leader for McAfee. It's my first time at reInvent and the first time I'm speaking, so very happy to be here.
Hi, folks. I'm Arun Saxena, and I lead the worldwide strategy for AWS Marketplace. I'm based in San Francisco, and this is my 5th reInvent, and this is my 3rd speaking engagement. So it's really good to be here, and looking forward to the Q&A session at the end of our breakout session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mazen and Arun, for the introductions. Now, I would like to start with a question, or a set of questions that probably some of you get as procurement users or buyers on Marketplace. What did I buy? When did I buy? And how much did I pay for this? Now, just by a show of hands, let's see how many of you are buyers on AWS Marketplace or procurement users. Great. I do see a few hands here that shows that some of you find this question relevant, and I'm sure you will learn a lot on how you can scale your procurement operations with AWS Marketplace. Now, before we go ahead, I want to touch upon our agenda in terms of what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to talk a little bit about reporting and governance tools on AWS Marketplace. Then my fellow speaker, Mazen, will take us through an exciting case study on how McAfee used some of these tools to streamline and scale their procurement operations. And then finally, Arun will take us home with some of the procurement best practices for AWS Marketplace. And just a friendly reminder, please remember to complete the session survey at the end of the session so that we can get feedback for future improvement. Now, let us start with a couple of statistics that we collected from our Forrester study on online marketplaces. We noted that nearly 60% of data and 45% of cloud software purchases are being frequently transacted outside of traditional procurement channels. And this was a big concern for procurement officers because this increases the risk to their supply chain, to their software supply chain, and potentially the total cost of ownership of these products. Now, let us take a look at why that may be happening. We know procurement teams are responsible for driving cost optimization inside their organizations, but they have to balance multiple objectives and stakeholders. They're focused on driving value realization and balancing speed and agility with how they're completing procurement. They're responsible for maximizing utilization of the software assets procured, and at the same time, ensuring that controls are implemented, that products are being procured from approved vendors. Now, this may lead a lot of application owners to believe that procurement policies, processes will increase the burden and reduce how quickly they are able to buy and deploy those products, resulting in them going outside of those traditional procurement channels. But this is where AWS Marketplace can help. AWS Marketplace is not only designed to help you try, find, and buy products and services, but it's also designed to help you improve the governance and control posture of your organization by providing you access to relevant tools. And as procurement officers, when you work with AWS Marketplace and build capabilities to balance speed and agility with procurement controls and governance, you are not alone in this journey. Our Forrester study showed that more than 80% of respondents believe their organizations are investing to improve the speed and agility of their operations by building new capabilities, and more than 78% of respondents believe that working with online cloud marketplaces, such as AWS Marketplace, reduces the risk posture of their organization. Now, let us take a look at some of the governance and reporting insights tools that are available on AWS Marketplace. The first is a set of dashboards that are available for buyers on AWS Marketplace, a procurement insights dashboard that you can view through your AWS Marketplace console, and a single pane of glass dashboard that you can view as a standalone business intelligence dashboard. We have made available enhanced purchase order support that finance teams can use to track AWS Marketplace spend by tagging purchase orders for AWS invoices for specific vendors and products. We have standardized contract templates being adopted by AWS Marketplace sellers so that we can reduce the time the legal and procurement teams spend on the contracting process. And finally, procurement teams have access to private marketplace that enables them to build a private catalog of approved products and streamline and integrate their workflows for procurement with AWS Marketplace activities. So let's jump in a little bit on these marketplace dashboards and understand what can you visualize through these dashboards. You can visualize your marketplace spend, your usage, and subscription and licensing activity through these dashboards for all your purchases through Marketplace, be it through self-service public offers or through private offers. And the best part is these dashboards are very easy to set up and access. As users, you do not need to have expert knowledge on the underlying AWS services to understand the information that is shown on these dashboards, making it relevant for not just technical AWS users, but also business stakeholders inside the organization, such as those from finance, procurement, legal, etc. And these dashboards are linked to the sources of truth, such as the cost and usage reporting data, which shows the actual invoicing and billing information. As such, users are not working on guesswork, but actual data from their AWS purchases. Now let's take an example of a situation where you have an AWS organization with lots of AWS accounts, in this example, account A, B, and C, where individual users are making subscriptions on AWS Marketplace to a variety of products. Now, you as a procurement user would like to see a holistic view of all the purchases that are made throughout the entire organization, because you want to make sure there are no bad actors who are making purchases without your knowledge by circumventing the traditional processes. So how do you do that? Well, that is why we released Procurement Insights Dashboard to provide our users with a holistic view of all of their AWS Marketplace subscriptions across the entire organization. You not only can get a view of the agreements that have been completed through the marketplace, but you also have a cost analysis dashboard that shows you the actual spend and usage information relating to those agreements. And you can access this dashboard through the Marketplace console or via APIs. Now let's take another case. What about those users who are business users from finance, legal, etc., who may not have access to the AWS console or may not even have AWS IAM identities and permissions to see some of this information? How do you address their needs? Well, for them, we have the single pane of glass dashboard, which is a standalone cloud intelligence dashboard built on Amazon QuickSights and available outside the console. You can view this dashboard through a mobile browser or any other browser and see the information about your AWS Marketplace activity, including spend, usage, and licensing. In fact, this dashboard even gives you the ability to see a holistic view of information across multiple AWS organizations in case you have multiple AWS pair IDs and organizations. So now let's take some examples of the types of information that you can see in this dashboard. And by the way, there is a lot on these dashboards, and I'm going to share only a few examples just to give you an idea how to use these. First, you may want to see the trailing 12-month spend on AWS Marketplace by vendor and by product. Or you may want to analyze how you have spent on AWS Marketplace month on month. Where are the spikes? Who are the vendors involved? How much did you spend on each product? You can even see the subscription license footprint for all products deployed in your organization, even when there is no active billing going on for those products. You may be interested to know that when you buy something through AWS Marketplace, AWS License Manager creates a granted license for those products that are deployed in AWS Marketplace. And this gives you a complete view of all products that are deployed and the licenses granted and accepted for those products. So you could use this information in a variety of ways. First, you might be wanting to know if there's an opportunity for you to consolidate your contracts because multiple purchases may have been made on different accounts. You may want to use this information to know if users are deploying products on their own, which are outside the traditional contracting process. Now, we would like you to go explore some of these dashboards. On the very left, we have a demo of the single pane of glass dashboard. Feel free to scan the barcode, pull up the demo dashboard on your mobile phone, and play with it. If this is something that helps you solve the visibility and reporting needs of your organization in terms of marketplace activity, go further ahead and scan the barcodes on the right over there in terms of procurement insights and single pane of glass so that you can actually deploy these dashboards. We'll also be at the marketplace booth where feel free to swing by and we'll show you a demo of these dashboards. Now let us move on to the other topic, private marketplace. As I mentioned, private marketplace is a catalog of approved products that you can build on top of the AWS Marketplace, the standard catalog. This allows you to share, this allows you to ensure that organizations can not only control who is buying, but what products you're subscribing to. And you can provide a customized experience to individual teams by limiting the products that they can buy. The interesting thing is you can actually use private marketplace as a guardrail such that people can only buy products when the product is added to the catalog, and you can use this feature to ensure that all procurement activities are completed properly before a product is actually added to the catalog. Now that we have heard about some of these tools and features that are available on Marketplace, I would like to take you through a case study such that you can see how all of this comes into play together. Now, I'm not going to walk you through all of these boxes on this slide here, but overall, the blue boxes represent a lot of the activities that you complete in your processes, in your procurement processes, such as approvals and signatures, and the white boxes here reflect what you're doing in terms of AWS Marketplace subscriptions. I'm excited to have Mazen here present how McAfee use some of these tools to scale procurement. Thank you, Mazen.
Thank you, Kaushik. Again, my name is Mazen Al-Hydri, and I'm with McAfee. For those of you that know the brand, we've gone through some transformation over the last couple of years. We're no longer that enterprise business solution provider. We're a pure play consumer business, and we're focusing on identity, privacy, and security management, along with our deep fake detector, which is also a new product coming to market very soon. We're a $4 billion company, and we're very excited about that deep fake detector, where we're looking into AI audio generation and detecting when those types of things happen within videos or calls and things like that. So I'll set aside the plug there for McAfee. How many of us actually came in through a security at the airport when coming to AWS reInvent? All right, myself included. You might be surprised to hear that I have had a delightful experience actually walking through the security. And it took about 10 minutes for me to get in line where it looked like there was going to be 60 so people in front of me, and get through the line. Didn't have to take off my shoes. They walked us 2 by 2 through the scanner. Didn't even have to take my computer out of my laptop bag. What does that mean, and what does that tell me? It shows that TSA is looking at focusing on business, on their customers, making their customer journey for a travel experience better. And at McAfee, we are also focused on customer journeys. It's a huge topic for us across all business units. And now when we think about procurement itself, our customers are the business users. And how can we focus on their experience within procurement? We've teamed up with AWS Marketplace to act as a procurement channel to help streamline certain business processes within our procurement space and allow for more streamlined buys and negotiations with our suppliers. That doesn't mean it didn't come with challenges. So, when we brought AWS Marketplace to play, we really saw nobody within our business besides our engineering folks knew that there was an AWS Marketplace. So getting the right folks to get in tune with what AWS Marketplace offers and how they can leverage it was a big component. We also realized that we had folks self-subscribing to different technologies, and at times, we didn't want them to just straight away subscribe without a procurement review or a legal review of those contracts. In addition, we have risk that might be exposed, and again, that kind of brings in the procurement and legal approvals of those contracts. So we had to take a step back, and we had to look at who is our business, who is our customers within the business. We really have 2 areas or 2 use cases. We have our technical engineers, our development teams that are looking to stand up instances within AWS and run things up, turn things down, test, really get to a proof of value very quickly. And then we also have application owners that look to buy products almost through a reseller program on a SaaS or subscription base. What we've looked at was there are different areas of risk that we can allocate towards these type of buyers. With our technical engineers, the risk is much lower. We are employing AMI, Amazon Machined Images, and we're doing it within our own containers and AWS platform. There's less so of a need for our compliance and technical requirements to make sure that those go through the right components. But then we also have our application owners who, when we think about security and we think about privacy concerns and legal concerns, these applications need to go through our ISOs, our NISTs, our different protocols that our security teams employ, and so they actually have more control and a higher risk. So we've created and worked with AWS Marketplace to have both components within our operation, to have a self-serve for our technical teams and a private offer where we can actually install some private controls and governance for some of our application owners. And why is that important? So coming back to the business case of our customer journeys and improving that customer journey. Procurement is no longer about just saving money. It's about the customer journey and getting to proof of value faster. Yes, we want to make sure we're saving money. And yes, we want to make sure that we have control and governance in doing so. We think that in leveraging AWS Marketplace as a buying channel, that'll enable our business teams to move quickly when capable, and also move through a source-to-pay cycle as well, very quickly, but still enabling our compliance and governance. And like Kaushik mentioned, we see a lot of different visualizations through the single pane of glass, where we can measure month to month, quarter to quarter, year over year, understand when we have higher rates of consumption, lower rates of consumption. We can see when we can leverage our protocols and putting in governance and control, bringing in our contract and legal teams when we need to, and creating an overall seamless experience for our users. And with that, I'll hand it over to Arun. Thank you.
Mazen, thank you, and Kaushik, thank you. So folks, you heard from both Mazen as well as Kaushik on the importance of governance and controls and how AWS Marketplace helps implement capabilities in that important area. So Kaushik spoke about spend analysis and the spend management dashboards and visualizations and so on, and that's a very important capability as it relates to governance and controls. So for those of us who are procurement practitioners in this room, you'll understand that spend analytics is literally foundational. And so those dashboards help in that area. Kaushik also spoke about private marketplace, and he explained that the private marketplace is really a custom curated catalog where you, the procurement executive, you can administer that catalog and you can create a list of approved vendors and products that make sense for your organization. So private marketplace is yet another capability to improve governance and controls. And then Mazen, of course, spoke about how he at McAfee is implementing some of these capabilities to improve the overall software supply chain. Now, over the course of several years, the last 4 or 5 years, and in working with literally hundreds of customers, what we've done is compile a set of best practices when it comes to using AWS Marketplace. And these best practices are shown here. The first thing is that you want to be intentional when it comes to using AWS Marketplace. What that means is that build an AWS Marketplace in your technology procurement strategy. Adopt a value-led approach to using AWS Marketplace. Understand where Marketplace provides that economic value or business value that makes sense for your organization, and scale and drive adoption on that basis. Expand collaboration across the entire value chain with your vendors, with your consulting partners, your channel partners, your resellers, your systems integrators, as well as internally, cross-functionally, and AWS Marketplace really enables that more effective and efficient collaboration. Bring a learning mindset, experiment and learn. AWS Marketplace is a new tool, it's a new technology. Get hands-on through proof of concepts and pilots, learn the basics, and then scale appropriately. And then, of course, don't forget to build those durable business capabilities that will help your organization achieve operational excellence and scale efficiencies as you scale the usage of AWS Marketplace. So with that, let's go a little bit deeper. Now, what exactly does it mean to be intentional? So when I speak to some customers, the impression I get is that they are using AWS Marketplace somewhat opportunistically, one-off transactions here and there. What we recommend instead is that be intentional about using AWS Marketplace and figure out a way to integrate it into your overall technology procurement strategy. Why? Well, I'll give you 4 main reasons. One is that cloud marketplaces are here to stay. They have enjoyed significant growth rates over the last 5 or 6 years and are predicted to continue growing at double-digit growth rates over the next several years, outpacing spending on overall IT and software. So increasingly, billions of dollars of software will be sold and procured using cloud marketplaces. That's the first reason. The second is that buyer behavior is evolving. Increasingly, more and more buyers are millennials, they are digitally native, and they're looking for digital ways to procure software. Mazen spoke about the need for speed and agility balanced with a set of governance and controls, and that's exactly what modern-day buyers are looking for. Speed and agility help us find the right solution and help us procure quickly, and that's where online marketplaces really come into play. Then what we are also seeing is that newer software vendors and startups are basing their overall go-to-market strategy on the basis of cloud marketplaces. And then finally, at AWS Marketplace, we are seeing increasingly large deal sizes, north of $10 million, being transacted on Marketplace. So for these 4 reasons alone, you should think about being intentional when it comes to using AWS Marketplace. What that means is assign a resource or 2, set some goals, commit to a course of action over the next 3 months and 6 months, and then figure out a way of how AWS Marketplace can align with your internal procurement processes and policies. And the first way, or the first step to being intentional is to understand how transactions work on AWS Marketplace. And there are 3 main ways. So the first is self-service, where you as a buyer can sign into the AWS Marketplace catalog with your AWS account ID. You can browse to your product listing of choice. And then if the public pricing makes sense, if the end user license makes sense, you can simply click to subscribe. And you are done. That's it. The second way is through the seller private offer mechanism. It's also known as Marketplace Private Offers, MPPOs, where you negotiate custom terms and custom pricing working directly with your software vendor. And when all of that is done, they will extend a private offer to you, which you can review and accept in AWS Marketplace. And then the third way of transacting is by working with your preferred reseller or consulting partner or systems integrator. They may help you in the software selection process and in also negotiating custom terms and custom pricing to meet your business needs. Once all of that is done, they extend a CPPO or channel partner private offer to you. Now, today, the way you transact on AWS Marketplace is on the AWS Marketplace website. And you'll hear more about this at reInvent this year, where we are actually increasing the number of venues where you can transact and procure solutions from Marketplace from other venues. So stay tuned for some of those announcements to be made later this week. Now, the best thing about AWS Marketplace is that it allows you to maintain that direct relationship with your software vendor or your channel partner. And so you're working directly with them, you're negotiating your terms with them, you're pricing with them, and when all of that is done, you're transacting using AWS Marketplace, but you're also taking advantage of the consolidated billing that Marketplace provides, as well as all of those management and governance features that it provides to help you create a well-architected procurement capability. The second business practice is around best practices around business value. Now, what we always say to our customers is that take a value-led, value-first approach to adopting AWS Marketplace. Understand where that value is relevant for your own company and your own organization, and where that value aligns with your internal value metrics. We did a study with Forrester Consulting's help a couple of years ago and found that companies on average realize a 75% reduction in onboarding new vendors, reduction in effort. And this is because AWS invoices sellers or invoices buyers on behalf of sellers. And so that reduces the need for you to onboard a new vendor into your own accounts payable systems as an approved vendor. And that, in turn, drives some productivity and efficiency that way. The 66% time savings comes from using features like the standard contract for Marketplace, which really helps you streamline the overall contracting process, as well as private offers, which help you compress the purchasing cycle time, particularly when it comes to doing renewals. So you can do a renewal in a matter of hours through AWS Marketplace as opposed to days or weeks. And then the 10% license cost savings comes from a variety of sources. The first is the purchasing flexibility that AWS Marketplace provides. So if you want to more closely match demand with supply, you can procure software using a pay-as-you-go pricing model. Or if you're willing to make a longer-term commitment, perhaps a 1-year contract or a 3-year contract, then if the vendor is giving you a better discount that way, you can choose to sign up for a longer-term commitment. You can also bring your own license in some cases and take advantage of existing licenses you may have for software that's running on-prem before migrating to the cloud. Now, in addition to the purchasing flexibility, of course, as Kaushik spoke about, there are those governance and controls capabilities that help you manage and reduce the total cost of ownership associated with software procurement. And then on the right, we are showing additional sources of business value. So today, AWS Marketplace has more than 25,000, I believe we are almost 30,000 product listings from more than 5,000 different sellers. And all of these solutions and products are organized by category and subcategory. There's a lot of filtering criteria, search capabilities, and so on. And what that is doing is it's reducing the search and selection cost associated when you're looking for a new product or a new solution. What I hear from our customers is that it takes weeks, if not months, to hone down on a vendor and a product before making a selection, right? And AWS Marketplace can help you compress that search and selection cycle time down. Then risk assessment. So some of our products come with what's known as a vendor insights profile. So what Vendor Insights provides you with is visibility into certifications like SOC 2 or ISO 27001 or GDPR or HIPAA or PCI DSS, et cetera. So you can understand which vendors and which products have those compliance certifications, and then it provides additional visibility to a whole bunch of security parameters, and that can really help you compress your overall risk assessment cycle time. And then, of course, cost optimization is done on the basis of all of those spend management and visualization dashboards, as well as using other native AWS services like the cost and usage report and the cost and billing console and other capabilities. And then, of course, governance and controls includes private marketplace, for example, which further drive that business value. So when we did this survey with the help of Forrester Consulting, one of the questions that was asked was that, look, you as a customer are using, you said you're using online marketplaces. What benefits are you seeing using online marketplaces? So 48% of the survey respondents said that it makes it easier for us to implement the right level of governance and controls that are in alignment with our internal procurement policies. More than 45% like the increased variety and options of data products, of software products, more trusted data products. And then more than 40% said that, look, we like the vendor quality, that's on these online marketplace catalogs. There's faster procurement, there are cost savings, and a more frictionless procurement process. So essentially, what the survey did was it corroborated our findings that Forrester Consulting reported through in-depth interviews with various customers that I described on the previous slide. So again, the point over here is that you can download these Forrester studies and you can explore AWS Marketplace and understand the business value and what's relevant for your own organization and bring that to the fore as you begin your adoption and scaling journey. The third best practice is around expanding collaboration on the basis of AWS Marketplace. So with AWS Marketplace, you get the private offer process, and the private offer process serves as a catalyst to bring together all of these disparate users and decision makers together to focus on shared objectives and common goals as they make a decision around procuring a new technology or a new product. Now, the flowchart I've shown over here is just a limited example of the private offer process that Kaushik also displayed. But essentially, you have stakeholders like InfoSec, perhaps the Cloud Business Office, IT, procurement, legal, finance. All of them have to come together to sign off on a new procurement that you're making. And then you also have the vendor involved, and in some case, the consulting partner or the channel reseller with whom you're working. So again, the private offer process serves to bring all of these decision makers. And I've actually seen this in action in my work with some of the larger banks on Wall Street, where, for example, procurement is not allowed to sign off on a contract. Instead, legal has to be present before they can do a subscription through accepting a private offer, and so on. So again, this process helps bring all of those different stakeholders together to converge on that decision. This fourth best practice around experimentation and learning was inspired by two Amazon leadership principles that I'm showing on the right-hand side. And these are learn and be curious and bias for action. Now, we are all practitioners here. And AWS Marketplace is a new tool. It's a new technology. So what we recommend to our customers is get hands-on. Start using the technology. And if your organization is brand new to AWS Marketplace, perhaps begin by learning the basics. Go to the website, browse the catalog, understand how the products are organized, understand the industry solutions that are listed there, look at the information on product detail pages, and then go and do maybe a proof of concept or a pilot. Maybe do a self-service subscription of a SaaS free trial, or perhaps do 2 or 3 private offers to understand the private offer process. Understand how purchase order management works in AWS Marketplace. So for example, you have the capability of entering in a purchase order number when you're accepting a private offer. And that PO number is reflected on the AWS invoice. It allows you to do a PO to invoice match, which is, again, yet another foundational capability related to governance and controls. Plus, purchase orders also help you do that cost allocation and chargeback to the right cost center or the right business unit. And then as you become familiar with some of these basic capabilities and as you do some of these pilots, move on to more advanced features and understand how they apply to within your own organizational context. Private marketplace, for example, or the standard contract for marketplace, which we hear from some of our customers can help accelerate or shrink the contracting cycle time down by as much as 50% or even more. And then as you get familiar with these advanced capabilities, move on to implementing the spend analytics and the spend management dashboards and the visualizations and using the cost and usage reports and the cost and billing console and other capabilities to drive that cost optimization. So the point here is bring a learning mindset, experiment and learn, and scale usage of marketplace as appropriate to your organizational needs. The last best practice is that don't forget to build a durable business capability on the basis of all of that experimentation and learning that you've been doing. You understand the business value, you're being intentional in your usage of AWS Marketplace, you figured out a way to align the private offer workflow with your internal procurement processes and policies, and now what you want to do is build that organizational muscle to drive operational efficiencies and scale efficiency. So what you're doing is encapsulating all of that learning into an institutional capability. Now, one of the best things you can do is, again, Mazen alluded to this, and that's what they're trying to do at McAfee, is that you want to achieve that balance between speed and agility in software procurement with the right level of governance and controls. So speed and agility is absolutely critical to driving that innovation that all of us need in all our companies, right? A lot of the digital transformation and innovation efforts are based on having the right software tools and capabilities in place. But you want to balance that speed and agility with the right level of governance and controls to manage that cost and risk. So to wrap up, here are the 5 main best practices that we recommend when it comes to using AWS Marketplace. First one is to be intentional about using AWS Marketplace, build it into your technology procurement strategy. The second one is to understand the business value potential and how it applies or is specific to your own organization. The third is technology procurement is a team sport. Use AWS Marketplace to collaborate effectively and efficiently across the software value chain. The fourth one is to learn and be curious. Take that experimentation and learning approach to scale adoption. And then, of course, the last one is to build durable business capabilities. Now, what I'll leave you with is a call to action, which is whether you are just getting started using AWS Marketplace or whether you're already a mature user and you've done many, many private offers, go to the AWS Marketplace website. We're always adding new content, new case studies. The Forrester studies that Kaushik and I referenced can be downloaded from the website. Understand how the products are listed under categories and subcategories. We've changed the user interface a little bit. So go and explore the AWS Marketplace website. For those of you who are new to Marketplace, maybe launch a proof of concept. Do some pilot private offers. Understand the private offer mechanism. Understand how self-service works. Enable purchase order management. See how that works. And then as you learn those basics, then you can move on to exploring more of those advanced capabilities like private marketplace and standard contract for marketplace and so on. So with that, on behalf of all of the speakers here, I want to thank you for attending our session.